Hello, Maria Antonescu from Massage and Movement. The hip hinge and glide is one of the classic moves that I give my clients. It is great for all of the hip muscles. It is great for the pelvic floor. It is wonderful for getting the SI joint moving. Hip hinge and glide is fantastic. So let me walk you through it. When we bend for this, we only hinge as far as the pelvis goes. Once my pelvis stops moving, I stop moving. If I were to continue on, my back rounds, and that's not what I'm looking for. So I put my hands on my pelvis and I feel where my pelvis stops. Here is where I figure out the height that I'm going to be at. You might find a chair, the back of a chair, a counter, a bookshelf, or even the wall is the perfect height for you. Meet yourself where you're at. Once you find where your pelvis hinges to, and it might be different day to day, make sure the weight is back over your heels and not leaning forward. So see how they're not even straight up and down, it's back a little bit. So I adjust my weight, I hold it here, and from here I shift side to side. So if my butt were on the wall, it would stay on the wall during this whole gliding action. It is not twisting, it is gliding. My torso is barely moving. So if I were to face you to do this, I would brace myself on my legs, and my torso barely moves, but my hips go. Ideally, we're always bracing our weight when we do this. So again, brace my weight. And then we'll adjust our feet so they're wider or more narrow. There are an infinite amount or variations of width you can do. Ideally, your feet will be pointed, the sides of your feet will be parallel. We don't want to do the hip hinge and glide with our feet pointed out or in, but ideally parallel. You may notice as you widen your stance and do this, start to get into your adductors, the inner thigh. The inner thigh, the adductor muscles, come up and form your pubic symphysis. So when these inner thigh muscles are imbalanced on one side or the other, so is your pubic symphysis. This area right here. If you find your belly button and just walk down where it gets hard, that's your pubic symphysis. So when you're nice and wide and feeling the adductor muscles, maybe go over to one side, note how it feels there, and then go over to the opposite side and note how it feels there. Is it even? Does one side feel more tense? Can you go further on one side compared to the other? And in this movement, I'd really invite you to think of it as a nourishing movement where we're bringing blood flow to the area. We're not going hard into a stretch. Instead, we're being gentle, we're bringing mobility, but we're not like, oh, move, muscle. It's just nice and gentle, bringing blood flow. And again, we'll be adjusting narrow, wider. You could do this on the counter while you're reading a book. There are many ways you can work this into your life. I invite you to work it into your life because it's fantastic for the SI joints. It's fantastic for the whole pelvic floor and hip complex. It is so good. It is my very, very favorite. Enjoy.